The attack that changed everything. They told us wrestling was fake. They told us it was all just entertainment. But when Bron Breakker's lifeless body was stretchered out of that arena, and Paul Heyman was fighting for his life in intensive care, those words meant nothing. This wasn't a work. This wasn't storyline. This was the moment wrestling died and something far more sinister was born. And if you think I'm being dramatic, stick around, because what I'm about to reveal will make your blood boil and question everything you thought you knew about this industry. The date was supposed to be just another Monday Night Raw. Fans packed into the arena expecting the usual chaos, the typical backstage segments, maybe a surprise return. Nobody, and I mean nobody, could have predicted that we were about to witness the most horrifying incident in professional wrestling history. An incident so severe, so incomprehensibly brutal, that it would make the Montreal Screwjob look like a friendly handshake. Bron Breakker. The name alone commanded respect. Second-generation superstar. The son of Rick Steiner. The nephew of Scott Steiner. Genetics blessed him with the physique of a Greek god and the intensity of a caged animal. At just 26 years old, he was being groomed as the future of WWE. The company had invested millions into his development. His merchandise was flying off shelves. Kids wore his arm sleeves. Adults respected his work ethic. He was that guy. The chosen one. The next big thing. And in one night, one brutal night, all of that was ripped away. Bronson-Reed. 335 pounds of pure destruction. The Tsunami. A man who had been vocal about being overlooked, underutilized, and disrespected by WWE management. For months, he'd been building resentment. His social media posts grew darker. His interviews became more hostile. But everyone dismissed it as just a guy trying to get himself over, trying to build heat for a character. We thought it was all part of the show. We were wrong. Deadly wrong. The attack began during what was supposed to be a routine backstage interview. Bron Breakker was cutting a promo with Kathy Kelly, talking about his upcoming championship opportunity. Standard stuff. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The camera was rolling. The lights were bright. Everything seemed normal. Then, out of nowhere, Bronson-Reed appeared. No music. No announcement. Just pure, unadulterated rage. The first blow caught Breakker completely off guard. A clubbing forearm to the back of the skull that sent him crashing into the production equipment. Monitors exploded. Cables sparked. Kathy Kelly screamed and ran. But Reed wasn't done. Not even close to being done. What followed was 15 minutes of the most sickening violence ever captured on WWE cameras. And yes, they caught everything. Reed picked up Breakker like he weighed nothing and launched him through a concrete wall. Not a breakaway wall. Not a gimmicked set piece. Actual concrete. The sound of Breakker's body impacting that wall echoed through the entire backstage area. Superstars came running. Referees tried to intervene. Security attempted to pull Reed away. He threw them off like they were children. Nothing was stopping him. It was like watching a man possessed by something demonic. The stomps came next. Reed's signature move, the Tsunami Splash, but this time there was no ring, no padding, just cold, hard floor. One splash, two splashes, three splashes. Breakker's ribs were cracking. You could hear them breaking. Medical personnel were screaming for Reed to stop. He didn't care. 4 splashes. 5 splashes. Blood was pooling beneath Breakker's motionless body. His eyes had rolled back. He wasn't moving. He wasn't responsive. And still, Reed wasn't satisfied. Here's where it gets even more disturbing. Paul Heyman. The legendary advocate. The wise man. The counselor to champions. He came running down the corridor, phone in hand, presumably calling for help. Reed spotted him. And something in Reed's eyes changed. It was like a switch flipped. He abandoned Breakker's broken body and targeted Heyman with the same murderous intent. Paul Heyman is 60 years old. He's a non-wrestler. He's a manager, a talker, a genius mind in the business, but not a physical competitor. Reed didn't care about any of that. He grabbed Heyman by the throat and lifted him clean off the ground with one hand. Heyman's legs were kicking. His face was turning purple. Superstars were now desperately trying to intervene, but Reed had positioned himself in a narrow corridor where only one person could approach at a time, and anyone who tried received a devastating strike that sent them crumbling. The powerbomb that followed will haunt me forever. Reed drove Heyman through a catering table with such force that the table didn't just break, it disintegrated. Pieces of wood became projectiles. Food splattered everywhere. And Heyman lay there, motionless, blood trickling from his ears. Blood from the ears means internal head trauma. It means potential brain damage. It means life-threatening injury. Finally, a swarm of at least 20 security personnel managed to tackle Reed to the ground. It took all 20 of them to restrain him. He was still fighting, still trying to break free, still screaming incoherently about respect and recognition. They eventually subdued him with what appeared to be a tranquilizer. Yes, you heard that right. They had to drug him to stop the rampage. The aftermath was chaos incarnate. EMTs rushed to both victims. Bronbreakker wasn't breathing on his own. They performed CPR right there in the hallway. His heart had stopped. Do you understand what that means? His heart stopped. They shocked him once, twice, 3 times with the defibrillator. On the 4th shock, they got a pulse. A weak pulse, but a pulse nonetheless. They loaded him onto a stretcher and rushed him to the ambulance. The entire roster watched in stunned silence as their brother, their colleague, their friend was wheeled away, barely clinging to life. Paul Heyman required immediate spinal stabilization. They couldn't move him without securing his neck and back. The impact of that powerbomb had done severe damage. Witnesses reported that Heyman was conscious but couldn't feel his legs. The implications of that are terrifying. Paralysis, permanent disability, career-ending doesn't even begin to cover it. We're talking life-altering. Raw went off the air early that night. WWE made the unprecedented decision to cancel the rest of the show. Fans were escorted out of the arena. Social media exploded. Within minutes, Bronbreakker and Paul Heyman were trending worldwide. Not for a great match, not for an amazing promo, but because they were both fighting for their lives. The hospital reports started coming in around midnight. Bronbreakker was in surgery, emergency surgery to relieve pressure on his brain. He had suffered a severe traumatic brain injury, multiple fractured ribs, a punctured lung, internal bleeding, and his body had gone into shock. The doctors gave him a 30% chance of survival. 30%. Let that sink in. A young man, in the prime of his life, with everything to live for, given a 70% chance of death. Paul Heyman's condition was equally dire. Fractured vertebrae in his neck and lower back. Severe concussion. Internal bleeding in his abdomen. He was placed in a medically induced coma to prevent further brain swelling. His family was told to prepare for the worst. The wise man, the advocate, the legend who had survived the wrestling business for 4 decades, was now fighting the biggest battle of his life. WWE's official statement came at 3 a.m. Corporate speak, legal jargon, thoughts and prayers. But what they didn't say spoke volumes. They didn't call it an incident. They called it an assault. They didn't say Bronson-Reed was suspended. They said he was terminated and that criminal charges were being pursued. This wasn't wrestling drama. This was real legal consequences for real criminal actions. The wrestling community erupted. Current superstars, legends, competitors from other promotions. Everyone spoke out. The Undertaker posted a rare social media message demanding justice. Stone Cold Steve Austin went on a podcast and broke down in tears. John Cena cut his movie production short and flew back to be with the WWE family. Roman Reigns, The Rock, Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, every major name expressed shock, grief, and anger. But here's what makes this even more infuriating. The warning signs were there. Bronson-Reed had been displaying erratic behavior for weeks. His shoots on social media weren't work. His confrontations with management weren't storyline. Multiple wrestlers had reported feeling uncomfortable around him. There were rumors of backstage altercations that were swept under the rug. WWE management knew something was wrong, and they did nothing. They prioritized the show over safety. They ignored red flags because Reed was getting reactions from the crowd. Day 2 brought devastating news. Bronbreakker passed away at 6:17 p.m. Eastern Time. Despite 12 hours of surgery, despite the best medical care money could buy, despite the prayers of millions of fans worldwide, his body couldn't recover from the trauma. 26 years old. A lifetime ahead of him. Dreams unfulfilled. A family destroyed. All because one man decided violence was the answer to his professional frustrations. The wrestling world stopped. Shows were cancelled. Tributes poured in from every corner of the globe. The Steiner family released a heart-wrenching statement thanking fans for their support while requesting privacy. Rick Steiner, Bron's father, was seen being physically held back at the hospital, screaming threats toward Reed. Can you blame him? His son, his baby boy, murdered in what was supposed to be a safe working environment. Paul Heyman remained in critical condition. Updates were sparse. His family maintained a media blackout. The uncertainty was agonizing. Would he survive? Would he ever walk again? Would he ever be the same Paul Heyman we all knew and loved? Questions without answers. Waiting without knowing. Bronson-Reed was arrested and charged with second-degree murder for Bronbreakker's death and attempted murder for the assault on Paul Heyman. He showed no remorse during his arraignment. No emotion. No humanity. When asked if he had anything to say, he simply replied, "They should have pushed me." They should have pushed him. As if professional disappointment justifies murder. As if not getting the opportunities you felt you deserved gives you the right to take someone's life. The legal proceedings revealed even more disturbing details. Toxicology reports showed Reed had been using an illegal cocktail of steroids and stimulants, not just performance enhancers, substances known to cause aggressive behavior, paranoia, and violent outbursts. Had WWE tested him properly? Had they enforced their wellness policy? Or had they looked the other way as long as he kept performing? These questions demanded answers. WWE faced immediate backlash. Lawsuits were filed by both families. Wrongful death, negligence, failure to provide a safe working environment. The company's stock plummeted. Sponsors pulled out. Congressional hearings were scheduled. The entire business model of professional wrestling was being scrutinized. How many more near misses had there been? How many other volatile individuals were walking around locker rooms unsupervised? How many tragedies were waiting to happen? The memorial service for Bron Breakker was held at the WWE Performance Center. Thousands attended. The building couldn't hold everyone. Screens were set up outside for the overflow crowd. Current wrestlers served as pallbearers. His entrance music played one final time. There wasn't a dry eye in the building. Multiple speakers broke down mid-tribute. His father couldn't even approach the podium. The pain was too raw, too immense, too unfair. Wrestling has lost legends before. We've mourned heroes taken too soon by heart attacks, substance abuse, and tragic accidents. But this was different. This wasn't fate. This wasn't bad luck. This wasn't an unfortunate consequence of a dangerous profession. This was preventable. This was murder. And that makes it infinitely worse. 3 weeks after the attack, Paul Heyman finally regained consciousness. The news brought temporary relief to a devastated community. But the relief was short-lived. Heyman had no memory of the attack. He couldn't feel anything below his waist. The doctors said the paralysis might be permanent. The advocate, the man who made his living with words and presentation, would likely never stand at ringside again. Another career destroyed. Another life irrevocably changed. Bronson Reed's trial became a media circus. Defense attorneys tried arguing temporary insanity. They claimed the pressure of professional wrestling, combined with substance abuse, had created a psychotic break. Prosecutors weren't having it. They presented evidence of premeditation. Text messages showing Reed had been planning to make them all pay. Social media posts cryptically referencing the day of reckoning. This wasn't a spontaneous outburst. This was calculated. This was intentional. This was murder. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. The verdict, guilty on all counts. Second-degree murder. Attempted murder. Assault with a deadly weapon, considering his body weight and training made him a human weapon. The sentence, life in prison without the possibility of parole for the murder charge, plus an additional 25 years for the attempted murder. Bronson Reed will die in prison. And even that doesn't feel like enough justice for what he took from this world. WWE implemented sweeping changes following the tragedy. Mandatory psychiatric evaluations. Stricter enforcement of the wellness policy. Increased security presence at all events. A zero-tolerance policy for threatening behavior. But are these changes enough? Can policy changes bring back Bron Breakker? Can new rules heal Paul Heyman? Can corporate memos erase the trauma experienced by everyone who witnessed that horrific attack? The wrestling industry as a whole had to reckon with uncomfortable truths. The culture that celebrates intensity can sometimes enable instability. The blurred lines between character and reality can be dangerous. The pressure to constantly perform, to always be on, to sacrifice health for entertainment can have deadly consequences. Bron Breakker paid the ultimate price for an industry that sometimes values spectacle over safety. Months have passed since that dark day. The wrestling world continues. Shows go on. Championships change hands. New stars emerge. But there's a shadow that lingers. An unspoken heaviness. Every time someone works stiff in a match, there's a moment of concern. Every time a backstage segment gets physical, producers watch more carefully. Every time someone cuts an intense promo, management wonders if it's crossing into something real. Bron Breakker's legacy lives on through the outpouring of love from fans and fellow wrestlers. A scholarship fund was established in his name for aspiring wrestlers. His family created a foundation focused on mental health awareness in combat sports. WWE dedicated a wing of the Performance Center to his memory. But none of these gestures, however well-intentioned, can fill the void left by his absence. Paul Heyman eventually gave one interview from his wheelchair. His words were measured but powerful. He forgave Bronson Reed, not for Reed's sake, but for his own peace. He refused to let hatred consume what remained of his life. He expressed gratitude for surviving when Bron didn't. And he challenged the wrestling industry to do better, to be better, to never let this happen again. It was vintage Heyman, turning personal tragedy into a call to action, but delivered without his usual bravado. This was real. This was broken. This was painful. So where does this leave us? What do we learn from wrestling's darkest hour? That entertainment is never worth a human life. That mental health in professional wrestling can no longer be ignored or stigmatized. That warning signs demand action, not dismissal. That the show does not always have to go on. That some things are bigger than storylines, bigger than ratings, bigger than championships. Bron Breakker should be main eventing WrestleMania right now. He should be holding championships. He should be inspiring the next generation. Instead, he's gone, his life stolen by senseless violence, and his family is left to navigate an impossible grief. Paul Heyman should be standing ringside, microphone in hand, delivering promos that make us believe in the impossible. Instead, he's relearning how to live in a body that betrayed him through no fault of his own. This is the story no wrestling fan wanted to tell. The tragedy no one saw coming. The wake-up call purchased with blood and broken dreams. Let it serve as a permanent reminder that behind every character is a real person with a real life that matters more than any entertainment value they provide. Rest in peace, Bron Breakker. Your legacy will never be forgotten. Your potential will always be mourned. And your death will forever remind us of the real cost of ignoring what truly matters in the pursuit of spectacle.